Good morning, Atlantis. That song was for Swanee.
Thanks, Shane. I'd like to thank my wonderful wife, Mary, and kids, Scott, John, and Quinn. Thanks a bunch.
This morning's wake-up song, It Probably Always Will, performed by the Ozark Mountain Daredevils. Today's music played for Mission Specialist Steve Swanson, who will be going to work in about an hour to help prepare Jim Riley and Danny Olivas to conduct the first spacewalk of the mission coming later today.
Installation of the S3-S4 truss element is expected shortly, with the crew on board the International Space Station getting in place at the robotic workstation inside the Destiny Laboratory module. On the right side of the screen, Atlantis pilot Lee Archambault and Expedition 15 flight engineer Oleg Kotov will be operating the robotic arm for that activity, and joined by mission specialist Pat Forrester later. Also in view, Expedition 15 flight engineer Clay Anderson on the left. He will be assisting with the segment-to-segment attach system bolting after the robotic arm has placed the new truss in the installation position. This is Mission Control Houston in the midst of the space station robotic arm operations. Pilot Lee Archambault and Station Flight Engineer Oleg Kotov at the controls inside the Destiny Laboratory module, lining up the space vision system targets for a precise installation alignment of the new truss element to the station, using camera views on the Space Shuttle robotic arm. This view is from a camera on the outside of the International Space Station, looking at the truss element, the station robotic arm grappled onto a fixture on the S3 portion of this new truss. The two spacecraft orbiting 207 statute miles above Africa. This is Mission Control Houston with the view inside the station's Quest airlock, with lead spacewalker Jim Riley in the lower right-hand corner. He and spacewalker Danny Olivas going through the procedure to prepare for today's spacewalk, being assisted by astronaut Steve Swanson and Sonny Williams inside the airlock.
ISS Houston on the big loop. We're momentum manager. We're ready to pick up in step 4. Take the brakes off, pick up step 4, S3-S4, install.
And Houston ISS on 2 for robot, we initiated step 4.
Understand you've begun step 4. Thank you.
Houston ISS on the big loop, modified. First stage capture is complete. We're go to limp the SSRMS.
We copy and concur.
Flight engineer Clay Anderson on board the International Space Station, working through the final steps to bring the latch assembly closed around the new truss element. And then we'll go through a procedure to bolt the truss structure in place using 4 bolts, motorized bolt assemblies within the segment-to-segment attach system to secure the new truss in place.
Houston ISS on space to ground 2. Third stage capture is complete. Mr. Archambault has a go for SSRMS safing.
ISS Houston for Robo and SAS, we copy and concur, and for Brew and Step need to report that down.
Copy.
Mission Specialist Sonny Williams operating the camera inside the station's Quest airlock with spacewalkers Jim Riley and Danny Olivas in their spacesuits. With the pressure inside the Quest airlock back to the standard pressure for the station, the hatch has been opened. Expedition 15 Commander Fyodor Yurchikhin greeting the spacewalking crew. With this view inside the station's Quest airlock, mission specialist Steve Swanson and Sonny Williams assisting with the assembly of the spacesuits, while simultaneously Jim Riley and Danny Olivas are inside the spacesuits undergoing the final steps of the pre-breathe procedure, breathing pure oxygen to help purge their systems of nitrogen to prevent feeling the symptoms of decompression sickness, or what's called the bends, during the spacewalk.
All right, visors is required. Looks like there is some sun out there. Yep, sunrise has happened. And Houston, are you taking care of step 13 for us?
And Swanee, we have step 13 complete.
Thank you very much, Megan. Pat, we are complete here. I'm ready to hand over to you. Danny, JR, have a great EVA. Thanks, sir. See you in a few hours. See you in a bit. Okay, JR. First thing is the thermal cover, and it came open on hatch opening, so you will go to egress the airlock. Okay. Danny, if you can kind of pull forward a bit. Joe, the first thing you could do is check your safer manual isolation valve is down, and also your hand controller module. Okay. Stand by just 1 second.
Mission Specialist Jim Riley, the first to exit the Quest airlock for this spacewalk. This is the 4th spacewalk for Riley. The second time for him to conduct a spacewalk from the Quest airlock. He and astronaut Michael Gernhardt conducted the very first spacewalk from this airlock in July of 2001 after it was installed on the STS-117 space shuttle mission.
You can transfer out the crew lock bag to JR, and the ret will stay on the bag. Roger that. Okay, that will work. You got the bag, JR? Yes, sir. Let me know when you're ready for the ret. Okay. Okay, I'm clear, Danny. Okay, I'm coming out.
Mission Specialist Danny Olivas now coming out of the Quest airlock hatch for his first spacewalk.
Okay, both handles look like they're down. Thank you. I'll give it a quick check. Yep, I've got 2 handles down. Okay, Danny, you can retrieve the crew lock bag that JR left out there. Okay, copy that. It'll work.
This is now a view from the helmet camera on astronaut Jim Riley's spacesuit as he's working on setting up safety tethers for both crew members.
Okay, Pat and Danny, I have the crew lock back stowed on the EPFR. And we're going to go ahead and pick it up, or we're going to set the settings here?
We're going to configure it here. So the first thing is Mike.
Mike, come in. All right, JR, I'm off the feeder cart. Okay. I'm heading down to the work site, so I'm clear. Okay. And the bag is deployed. Gonna run this red out for you. Thank you.
NJ, I understand you attached the free end of the fuse tether to 2215.
Yep.
You.
This is Mission Control Houston with the view from a camera placed in a window of the Space Shuttle Atlantis.
That's that.
Okay, JR. Going to move on to the Nader utility tray.
Roger that.
When you get there, you've got to go to ingress the APFR.
Copy that, thanks. Okay, Pat, I've released the TA clamps for all but 17.
Okay, we've got to go from the ground already, JR. You probably heard it.
Yeah.
So we can go ahead and start by demating P17, and you can leave it in the clamp.
Roger.
Both of the spacewalkers have completed initial setup for the spacewalk activities. Astronaut Jim Riley seen here at the lower utility tray of the new truss, where he will make electrical connections to that new element. And this a view from the helmet cam on Jim Riley's spacesuit.
Pat, Danny, I'm now ready for the next APFR setting.
Okay, it will be a clocking of 2.
Clocking of 2, coming. Okay, ready for jettison, Pat?
Okay, JR, we're looking for a retrograde, and if you could report the speed and direction, please.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, release. And looks like it's about maybe 5 degrees up and 10 degrees right of the velocity vector, and should be separating at about 5 to 6 feet per second. Should have a great view of it out the window.
Okay, great, JR. Brew reports team. Good separation, retrograde.
This is Mission Control Houston, a view from the helmet camera of J.R. Riley. He and Danny Olivas continue on their spacewalk, now 1 hour 52 minutes in duration. Lead EVA officer Keith Johnson reports that the crew is about 15 minutes ahead of the EVA timeline right now. Even though they did get a bit of a late start on the EVA due to the loss of attitude control.
Yes, sir. And this is going for your DLA.
Yep, that's S404, right?
That's correct, and we can configure it whenever you want.
Okay. Oh, good call, Bob. Thanks. I still see that bag out there. That's pretty impressive. Somebody tilt up. I don't know if you can see it in the WVS.
This is Mission Control Houston. You're looking at a view from Danny Olivas' helmet camera as he works with a torque wrench to release one of the bolts. He's moving on to the work with uncinching one of the radiators.
TGT settings. I'm at H12. And, yeah, so I'm ready for those now.
Okay, Danny, it's Bravo 7.
Bravo 7 is set.
Counter 2.
Counter 2 is set.
30.5.
30.5.
And it's 8 to 14 turns, and they're pushed to
8 to 14
please
per
be sure to
gauge.
stow the cables and the cinch clips, and I just want to caution you to avoid contact with the flex hoses.
Okay, copy that. Thanks for the reminder.
Olivas wrapping up his work with the release of the forward outboard restraints and moving on to uncinching and unwinching the radiator, while J.R. Riley has completed his work with the Zenith utility tray connections and is getting ready to move on and begin working with the aft wing beta gimbal restraint release. So far, 2 hours and 8 minutes into this spacewalk.
Okay. Danny, are you clear of the solar array? I am clear, JR. Okay. And Pat, I'm releasing the nadir bolt.
Copy.
All right, Pat, that did it that time. It was a very high running torque initially, and once it started to move, it came off without a problem.
Okay, that's good news, Danny. You verify you stowed the cinch in the clip.
As we speak, that's complete. Okay, and Pat, Danny, H16 is now complete. Moving on to 14.
Copy.
And it is stowed.
Spacewalker Jim Riley reporting that he's completed the nadir work with the aft wing beta gimbal restraints, getting 404 locks of the 4-bar linkages completely deployed and locked. Meanwhile, Daniel Levis continues to work on his tasks of uncinching and unwinching the radiators. Four of the cinch bolts that need to be released have been done. Here's a good view of the two spacewalkers as they are at the very end of the mast canister.
Yeah, stand by. I'm having to cal my PGT here. I hit the off switch inadvertently. Okay, Alpha 7. Alpha 7. Counter 2. Counter 2. 14 turns. Roger that. Spacecraft is number 3. Got that on WVS. That looks good right there.
This is a view of J.R. Riley as he works at the very end of that mast canister. Process of releasing the mast tip fasteners. There are 3 of those. He'll be using his pistol grip tool to turn each one of them about 14 turns. This is Mission Control Houston. Jim Riley in the process of moving from one set of bolts to the others. He's released the drive latch assembly lock bolts and now is moving on to actually removing the launch restraint bolts. These drive lock assemblies need to be installed in order to enable solar array rotary joint activation.
Okay, pitch up the tool a little bit. Yep, almost. No, too far in. Back it out. Back it out. Pitch up. Right there. Yep. There you go. There you go. Perfect. Great job. You got it, man.
Houston ISS on the big loop. Exercise is stopped. Looks like the EV team's ready, and we're also ready for the PVR deploy. We'll put step 6 in work if you're ready for that.
Swanee, we're ready for that.
In work.
This is Mission Control Houston. Here is a view of the deployed radiator on the S3-S4 truss structure. One of the first elements of the new appendage for the International Space Station to be deployed. This deployment beginning at 7:40 p.m. Central Time as spacewalkers Jim Riley and Daniel Levis continued with their work to remove the launch locks on the solar array rotary joint that will allow this new solar array, set of solar arrays to rotate and track the sun.
Houston ISS Big Loop, we show step 6 completed. We do have a good positive PVR stop indication.
Brew, we copy.
Alpha 1.
Okay.
During today's post-mission management team briefing, Mission Management Team Chairman John Shannon of the Space Shuttle program announcing that mission managers have decided to extend this mission 2 additional days to allow a forced spacewalk. Among the tasks to be added in will be some repair work on that insulation blanket on the port side orbital maneuvering system pod. No decision just yet on whether that work will take place on the 3rd spacewalk of the mission on Friday or the 4th spacewalk of the mission next Sunday.
Cover 6 complete.
Copy 6 complete.
Cover 5 next.
That should be your last one, Danny, number 5.
Yes, sir.
Shuttle Station Complex continues to orbit the Earth at an altitude of 214 statute miles. Just finishing up a southeasterly swing over the African continent, just over the southern tip of the island of Madagascar.
You may want to get the S3 target tethered in place, and the first thing you'll do is receive that medium ORU bag.
Okay, copy that. I'll do that.
Spacewalkers had some opportunities to add some more lengthy get-ahead tasks, but elected to go ahead and finish the spacewalk pretty much on schedule. That would allow them to support a EVA-2 by Pat Forrester and Steve Swanson, pretty much according to the planned timeline, so that there won't have to be a lot of adjustments on Wednesday when the 2nd spacewalk kicks off.
Okay, we started off in the airlock today with Swanee and Sonny suiting up JR and Danny to do EVA number 1. There's Sonny giving us a little acrobatic demonstration. This is before we repressed the airlock when they were still in the camp out overnight. You can see the EV crew putting on their magic masks. Of course, JR and Danny have been camped out all night in there, and now Swanee and Sonny are letting them out for the hygiene break. You see each one of them is wearing a mask, and those bags they have with them contain about 120 feet of hose and allows them to move out into the station and even all as far as the shuttle so they can take their hygiene break and pick up anything they need. We put them back in the airlock, and then Brew and I began to work. I'm working on STS, or ABU as we call it, and thanks for all the folks on the ground that supported that, and Brew's getting the truss moved into position for the install.
Yeah, this is Brew, and we started out our install today by taking it from that handoff position that we had it in last night, put it through about a 40-plus minute automated maneuver that got us about approximately 5 feet out from the S1 truss, and once there we were able to push it in manually to make a contact, and I got it in good shape align well for Clay Anderson, our new space station crew member, to drive the bolts and secure it in tight. More ops here. As you can see, Pat's on one side working from the Cupola workstation, and from there he was working the SVS. And here you see myself working the controls for the space station, the robotic arm. I'm assisted by Oleg Kotov on my left, and right behind him is Clay Anderson. It was time to suit up the two EVA crew members. That's Jim Riley on the right and Danielle Levis on the left. You see, even though the hatch is closed, we have our two IV support, Sonny and Swanee, and they'll stay in there until it's time to put the EVA crew members into the crew lock. This was Danny's first EVA, and it was spectacular. And JR had done this a couple times. In fact, he did the first spacewalk out of this airlock. And what you just saw right there was the actual install, the final couple of feet of installation shot from the space shuttle's right cockpit window. Brew and these guys were doing their superb assembly work. Danny and I were in the airlock depressing, getting ready to go outside, waiting for their call, and it was just perfect as far as the timing went today. As soon as these guys got ready to latches, and it was time for us to get in our suits and get in the airlock, and here you see us getting ready to start the purge, getting our gloves on, and the helmets go on very shortly after that. Clay here was doing the soft bolts, which attached the truss to the S1 truss, and that was our key to start the depress to begin the EVA. And again, as we mentioned, it was perfect as far as the timing today. And here you see us putting on the helmets. Danny's putting his helmet on here, and we're about to go fans on, helmets on, which is what we were keying for with the ready to latch indications. And as soon as we got those, then it was time for us to start. And here you see us in the airlock, getting ready to go outside and on Danny's first EVA.
One of the things that I did notice during this whole evolution is how much this is very well represented in the training program that we have at NASA, and what a great job the trainers that's given us all the preparation that we need for this particular mission have done. It all felt like secondhand.
You can see some of us, either Danny or I can't tell which one, out there on the truss getting ready to install some of the crew lock bag. That's Danny out there with the APFR and the crew lock bag right at the beginning of the EVA. And even though this was his first, it was like he'd been out there before. He was an absolute natural at what he was doing.
Again, I've got to really give a strong strong word for the training team, and especially the neutral buoyancy laboratory where we did a lot of our training. You see here, Pat Forrester was our IV crew member, basically reading us all the procedures that we needed. And I'll tell you, when you get out there and you're just in all being in space, you really get a feeling of actually losing several brain cells. And so Pat did a phenomenal job of keeping us on target and on track.
This is toward the end of the EVA. You can see the solar arrays, the blanket boxes are deployed, and Danny and I are working around the rotary joint on the covers and the launch locks here. And the radiator is going to deploy here in just a few minutes. So that was a full day, and it all went beautifully. And as Danny said, we had a stupendous crew on the ground that helped us out today, and this is the DLA cover that we were reinstalling after the engagement of the DLA.
I never quite realized how dark it gets until you've been out in space on a night pass, and it's really generally the darkest I've ever seen in my entire life. We did have a crescent moon giving us a wonderful little bit of light, and you can see here, this is what the view was like every 45 minutes, the sunrise and the sunset, absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, working out there on the bottom like that and watching the PVR deploy, you can get a sense of what it's like for us sitting out there at the end of that truss with nothing below us but the Earth going by and the horizon falling off in both directions. It was, in a word, incredible. It was one of those things that just can't be matched. And then at the end of a great EVA, again I said, Danny did an absolutely stupendous job today. Even though it was his first EVA, he was a pro at it. We were able to finish up a little bit early, and it was a great day for a spacewalk.
And you can see here the pro that we have who is leading this EVA team, Jim Riley. He did a phenomenal job of ingressing the airlock, and he's done an awesome job in helping us with choreograph our EVAs.
After we get them back in the crew lock, it's time to repress and bring them back into the equipment lock.
Having done the IV job before, I'd just like to thank Sonny and Swanee. They're still over there working in the airlock as we speak right now, getting everything squared away for the post-EVA and the next EVAs, and they did a super job today. Just pulling the safer units off the cliffs. And then rotating the EV crew and installing them on the EDIS. You can see the station commander, Fyodor, was helping out here. We've got a lot of great support from both Fyodor and Oleg on this mission already, as well as Sonny.
As you can tell, we had a really good day today and felt really good at the end of our day